Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into what's happening in the arcade space. From arcade developers, arcade owners and operators, pinball, and just news in the space in general. Now, before we jump in, I am selling Stern pinballs with Compulsive Pinball. We partnered up. If you're looking to add one of those to your collection and or game room or arcade, just let me know. Indie games, ice cold beer, we've got it all. Go ahead and shoot me an email at indiearcadewave@gmail.com, and we will get that figured out for you. Now, this week, I want to bring on Jeff from Dirty Pool Pinball. We've been talking for a while now. I found him before he was doing interviews and was just really interested in how he was streaming, how he was presenting the games because of how knowledgeable he was. And he was playing Attack from Mars. So, I mean, that's an easy win right there. So let's bring Jeff in and talk to him. How you doing, Jeff?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I'm glad I don't have that Attack from Mars right now.
Oh.
I know.
But you have the Lord of the Rings, right?
I do. Lord of the Rings right here. It's hiding behind me. That one's bolted down for... I love how people say bolted down, and it just means temporarily bolted down. You never know, right? You never know.
Yeah, they're going to move, right? They're going to be shifted. You're going to change games. You're going to trade it with somebody.
Yeah, totally.
You never know what's going to be in the collection, and I love the stuff you're streaming. I loved watching Attack from Mars. We were kind of going back and forth about it on one stream. We first kind of started talking, and it was awesome to meet you at Expo. You know, finally meeting people
Absolutely.
that you're talking to online and other content creators is great. Let's just jump into you, man. Like, who's Jeff?
Okay.
How did you get into the whole pinball space, and like what's going on with you?
Firstly, like it was great meeting you as well at Expo. It's funny, like you see these people online, you've been talking to them, like through text and stuff, and then when you actually run into them in person, it's just like, what's this person going to be like? But you were like absolutely exactly as as your interviews are. You're just a really genuine person. It was great meeting you. But yeah, honestly, like I got into pinball maybe 20 or so years ago. Pinball Molly got me into it. I stumbled into Pins and Needles, which is a pinball space that she had created in the back of this punk rock recording studio. And Keith Elwin was working on pins there, and I just kind of got sucked in. I remember I played, I think Alien Poker was like one of the first games that and Fathom that like really like brought me in, because most of her collection was like, I don't know, System 11, System 9s, like early Gottliebs, that kind of stuff. And I bought a Road Kings. It was all screwed up. It had a bunch of like acid damage on the board, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I talked a little bit about it with Keith. He, helped me kind of troubleshoot some stuff. And then I ended up sending the board off to get fixed. Back then you could pick up a game. I think I bought that Road Kings for like $300, which is, man, it would be amazing if you could even remotely buy a pinball machine for $300 these days. But yeah, so, that got me into the hobby. And then I kind of I fell out of it when we bought a property, and it was owned by a drug dealer, and it had this huge panic room in the back, and that's where they were growing hydro. And I was like, man, it would be so cool to convert this into a pinball space. It had a bookcase that blocked the entrance. You'd never know the space was there. And in my head, I imagined you open the bookcase, you go in the back, and there's all these pinball machines there, and it's just absolutely pinball heaven in the weirdest way. And I put them all back there, and I never played it because it was inaccessible and just, I don't know, it was not ideal. Anyways, we converted the patio. I put all my pins back out there, and then I just dove back in the hobby. People in League were telling me you should start a pinball channel. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to be a personality or talk on camera about pinball. I just wanted to play it. And then, Twilight Zone, I bought a pin sound kit for it because I wanted to get DCS sound. Pin sound, or Twilight Zone was supposed to have DCS in it, but instead it got moved to Indiana Jones, which I think was the first game that had digital sound, at least from Williams. And so yeah, I got the pin sound board, and then I was like, you know what? I could actually do a sound kit for this. That's my job, literally. I've worked in the trailer and music space and branding for decades, and I was like, man, I could probably really kill a really interesting Twilight Zone kit, and I'm going to do it. Make it sound very much like the 50s, make it kind of cinematic and dark. And so I did it. I released it and contacted the pin sound guys, and they put it up on their site. They were like, this is amazing. Thanks so much. And and then I was curious about what other games and what other could I work in a real pinball space? And I contacted a bunch of manufacturers. I contacted Spooky and JJP and everybody. Nobody got back to me. And it's just it's such a small community. So I was like, well, I'm going to start a podcast instead. If I can't, work in the space where I'm talking about games, well, at least I can, or making sound for it, at least I can talk about them. And so, I started the podcast. It opened some doors to talk to some people that actually worked at the manufacturers. And one of the first people I interviewed was David from Barrels of Fun. And they asked me, I made a joke about how they didn't have anybody on their website that did sound. And, David was like, well, let's talk about that. What have you worked on? I showed him my portfolio, and now I've worked on Dune and Winchester. So yeah, that's I guess the long short version.
I love the fact that you interviewing him turned into an interview for you, right? Like opening all these doors by becoming a personality, by creating content in the space and telling the stories of what's going on. It lets you into places that you never would have been able to get into, right? You got your foot in the door just by talking about what he's making and what he's doing, and how you enjoy what he's doing. And I loved how like honest and candid you were when you first got that Dune. You were like, it's not ready. The code needs to get worked on, and it got worked on. It got better. It got better. I was in the same boat. I first played it. I was like, this is a fun game. It shoots pretty well, but I feel like there's not too much going on. Like there's not a lot to do. And I played it again at Expo. You kind of walked me through, gave me some of the rule sets, and the game feels way more fleshed out, and it's incredibly fun now. That sandworm is super cool. I've never even seen the Dune movies, but I still enjoyed the IP.
You'd be surprised how many similar comments there are to that, where it's like they don't know anything about Dune, but as soon as they play the game, they're like, this is a really fun game. It really is. Like it flows more unique than a lot of games, and it's just like you said, it's a fun game, and it's in such a great spot. I really want people to give it a try now, especially now that I have my mark on it. And
right.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive back into, you were talking about kind of how everything started, how you got into the hobby, how you started collecting and building and fixing games. What was it that really pushed you over the edge to start creating content, to become a personality in the space? And what advice would you give to someone else that, is interested in starting their own podcast or wants to get into the space as well?
Sure. Those are great questions. I think Melody from our league was, I think, one of the biggest motivators, who was just like, you should start doing this. You should stream it. And in terms of being self-critical is really good. I watched a lot of my streams over and over again to just see, like, because you when you're talking about yourself on camera, but then you look at it again later, it's really easy to see what you can improve and how things were like not so great about what you've been talking about. And being critical in that space so that you can be a good entertainer, I think, is really important. And when I started streaming on especially with the Twilight Zone episodes, like I just had no idea what I was doing. I was really driving myself to try to like appease the people that were watching. And I like quickly realized after researching online and talking to people that like you just really have to own what you're planning on doing and do it the best way that you want to. And the people that enjoy that and gravitate to it are going to, and they're going to be passionate and enjoy what you're doing. And the people that don't get it and don't like it aren't. And that's fine. Like you don't have to try to make everybody like you. It's just be passionate and be very focused on what you're trying to contribute, and that's going to click with people. So as soon as I really stopped trying to make people happy and just be me, it really, I think, helped take off, and the channel, grew naturally, and that's great. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's no point in trying to be someone that you're not, like you mentioned, like it's all about being genuine, being authentic, just being yourself, because in this space, we're all nerds. We all like games. We play a lot of video games. We're streaming video games for fun in our free time, to build something, and you never really know where it's going to go. I mean, it got you a job at Barrels. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that transition happen? You kind of did you jump right into Dune with sound design? And where did Winchester come in? Like, were you brought in right at the beginning of that project, or was it kind of in the middle?
So I was brought in initially so Dune had reached the point where they had released it. They were having some licensor issues, and the game came out, and they had done a cursory level of sound design on it, and they were continuing to work on it, but they were just like, hey, look, do you want to come in and just take over the entire sound design package for this game? As kind of like a test, if I could do it. And I was like, for sure, I'm happy to show you what I can do on this. I have had work in the actual Dune trailers licensed. So like I already had sounds in this space. So I was like, this is like perfect for me. And I can't wait to show you what I can do. So we finished Dune, and they were very happy. I was very happy. And then the internet seemed to be pretty unanimously like feel that the game had improved on a sound level. So that they were like, well, we have another game. And David was like, do you want to work on a game that is like essentially completely unknown? And I was like, for me, a pinball IP is irrelevant. Like, I think that the rules and the playfield layout are paramount, at least for my interests. And I know a lot of people that the IP is more important. Respect that. Joe's really passionate about that. This is Joe from Pinball Degenerates. Predator was a mixed bag for him because he really wanted the Schwarzenegger in it. And I respect people that the IP is more important. But for me, I didn't care. And when they were like, yeah, this is the Winchester Mystery House and this is the game, it's Carl D'Angelo. And I was like, one, I've known Carl for a very long time. And that alone was enough of an interest to be like, are you kidding me? Of course I want to work on Carl's first game. But secondly, I was just like, this is such an interesting, weird little like pinball oddity, like making essentially a haunted house game again, that it was just perfect opportunity for me. And they were open to me approaching the sound and the music in my own way. There was no real pushback at all. Like pretty much any idea I brought, I was like, I want to do sound design that's similar to like a 90s pin when you use the same FM chips. Excuse me, I was like, for the music, I want it to be kind of like a score, right? Like I want the transitions between rooms to be like orchestrated piano, like full orchestra stuff. And then when you get into wizard modes and things like that, I can go shift more into like weird electronic space. And like, I had this whole vision for where it would be. And it was so different than what pins are kind of doing right now. And they were on board. David trusted me, Carl trusted me. And I think that's really, people seem to be really like digging the game, even though it's limited and hard to get a hold of. So...
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You guys are doing what, 525 of them or something like that?
That's correct. Yeah.
I met some new friends at Pinball Expo. I was with OB, who I went in line with him. We were playing some games, and I didn't even know this when we were in line. I think I played with him twice before he even said anything. But he actually got one of the games. He paid for it and everything. He's waiting on it. He's super excited. So we got to actually like. Carl and David walked us through the game. They came over, they played it with us. They were telling us like, shoot for this, shoot for that. It was really cool to get that like personalized walkthrough of the game. And I was blown away. I didn't check any videos or anything about it beforehand. I had no expectations going into it. And I thought it was incredibly fun to play. The sound design was great. I mean, obviously that's you. The rules were fun, and I like that they had the seance multi-ball turned on for ball 3, whether you were there or not. It was super easy to get, but just to see a little bit more of the game, I thought it was great the way that everything was structured, and it seemed to be the busiest spot of the entire show. Probably next to homebrew, right? Those two were just crazy busy. You had to be in line no matter what you were going to play there.
Yeah, homebrew section was amazing. I love that a lot of the creators have been talking about how the homebrew section was like kind of the star of the show. I understand that like to a certain degree, like you have to pick a manufacturer in a game for all the like media buzz. But right. I personally, Manu gave me a tour of like the entire homebrew section, and to me that was my favorite part of the show. Like it was fun showing people the games, and my first experience meeting people and fans that have been like following the channel since it started in January. Like that was amazing, peak experience. But when it comes to Expo, like the homebrew just took it away. They knocked it out of the park. So
absolutely, yeah, it was awesome. I did a video with Emoto. We kind of did a tour of the whole thing. She kind of broke it down, who did what and everything. And it's crazy to see these creators. And when you think about it, like Elwin got hired because of a homebrew. Jack Danger got hired because of a homebrew. So it's like you never know who's going to be the next Elwin or Danger that's going to come out of that space, and it's really cool. Since we're already on that topic, I wanted to talk to you about kind of your opinion on what Barrels, Spooky, Turner, and all these homebrew guys are doing to innovate the space that's going to push people like JJP and Stern to continue innovating and taking more risks, right? A lot of people talk about how Star Wars is it's a solid game, but it was safe. It was a very safe play on the license. So what do you think these smaller manufacturers and homebrewers are doing to really push the space forward and force these bigger players to take risks?
So, I mean, I think that this is just, every industry has this mentality, right? If you look at Hollywood, the indie films, films like The Substance and stuff like that, Weapons, they push these ideas that are just like no major studio would take this on and produce it at a mass scale, right? And I think that's synergistic with what is the pinball market space. Spooky and Barrels and Pinball Brothers are like the indie film producers of pinball. And they're the ones making weird, unique games that are able to take risks, that don't have as much distribution in terms of how many units are being manufactured, at least to try to make this comparison. And some of that stuff I think is going to filter into the big two, which is, Stern and JJP, like you said. But to a certain degree, I don't think it ever will, because Stern and JJP are selling large numbers of games. Accessibility is important for them. They want the experience to be more total package, whether you're an experienced player or a beginner player. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. And the times that Stern does take risks, they get criticized. You know, X-Men was a pretty big risk, I think, in terms of its wacky layout and everything. I think X-Men's a really great game. I think the flow of it's super unique. And it received a lot of negative criticism, you know, and I don't know how much this had to do with it, but, you know, Jack is no longer designing games. And that's a shame, in my opinion, because I think that was Stern's opportunity of bringing in a home brewer, like you said, to try to do something that was more risky in a way that was pushing what pinball could, you know, be on a large scale. So yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think Stern is going to produce high quality games that are bulletproof and are a mixed bag. Sometimes you get a unique one, and they're going to be IPs where they don't have a lot of flexibility. And then you're going to have companies like the indie guys making games that are just kind of weird and wonky.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fair point. I mean, I thought X-Men wasn't my favorite game. The code's a little bit better, but that extra lane that Jack made, again, not my favorite, but I think it was such a cool adaptation. It's a cool innovation. It's something different that you're not seeing in every single pinball. So huge there. And, you know, I don't know exactly the whole story behind him not designing anymore, but at least he's pivoting to a position that he's incredibly good in. I mean, he's got Dead Flip. He's already a personality. So taking over their marketing is a great spot for him. And hopefully it's going to help Stern grow and help him grow. Let's talk a little bit more about your side with Winchester. Like, what all did you do? Kind of unwrap like what it was like working on this game from scratch with Carl and really having like, this is an IP. I mean, you just mentioned it right there. There are restrictions when you have a big IP and everything like that. Like, this is an IP where, from what I heard from David in the interview, like he was saying that they pretty much had freedom, right? Like you can do whatever you want. So what was it like to have full freedom on a project like that?
I mean, it's any creative person's like, you know, fever dream or, you know, perfect scenario. The Winchester estate was super open. You know, the one time that they got all of assets to review, they were just like, sounds great. You know, I'd mentioned in the behind the scenes that I misquoted. I said that you couldn't use the term ghost. It was more that they didn't want the ghosts referred to as like demons or something malicious like that. It's just, it's not on brand with what Winchester is. But, you know, other than that, I have to, just, of course, shout out the rest of the team. Like I worked very directly with Eric, who's the programmer. You know, I worked close with Trent, who was one of the animators, Josh, who did the 3D modeling and stuff for the environment. And, you know, less so with Brad because the playfield artwork, even though, you know, we would talk about it in our meetings, but, you know, it's just, for me, I'm not waiting on assets from him to do my job. But yeah, so essentially I gave a palette of sounds for the playfield for like a starting point. And this was important because the switch timings you can't really see initially. And I don't have the prototype with me. I was driving out to Carl's place to check out the prototype. And because Carl has his video set up great, you know, he's able to capture video for me so I can see what the timings are. There's inductive switches that are underneath the playfield. There's optos, there's all sorts of stuff. And being able to know what the timing is for these in order to make the sound effects like actually like motivate what the ball motion is like really important. And so when I was told the theme, I started writing music tracks. I talked to Carl. Carl came over and we sat down. I played him some music from trailer music that I had done that was like in kind of a spooky vein. And I was like, you know, I feel that this is a great start. He had sent me some references, like Seventh Guest. I'd mentioned that in a podcast before. Probably one of my favorite like FMV 90s video games. You know, it's like a puzzle game where you travel around in this old house. And so, you know, I started writing music and I was like, he's got this huge brief. It's 100 pages long. Every room has a description. I'm like, I'm going to make every single room have its own personality, have its own score that you can have an earworm when. You know, I hope that people walk away from Winchester and find themselves like humming the melodies from some of these rooms, because I think that's what's missing in a lot of pinball machines is like, you know, I asked, who was I talking to at Expo? I think it was Zach at Flipping Out or, it doesn't matter. I was like, name a song from a pinball machine in the last 10 years. Like hum the melody that isn't a band pin or something. And like nobody could do it. It was Jaws. They'd be like, dun, dun. I'm like, this is the problem, is that music is not memorable in the pinball landscape. And I want to try to push it. And I can't wait to do more. I feel like there's such a large space to continue to explore in this. And I plan on, as much as I can, innovating and doing the weirdest possible shit that I can to make pinball music and pinball sound design kind of come back into the limelight. Instead of just supporting the game, I want it to the game to kind of like support it and create something special. So Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're dead on with the whole idea of like, I can't think of a single pin that I can think of the sounds that isn't a rock band or a movie, right? But then you think about video games and like, who doesn't know Halo? Who doesn't know Super Mario Brothers? Like, all of these games are so instrumental. Pokemon, right? Like, these anybody can
Yeah.
sing those songs, right? They're just so popular. So I think the idea of a pin holding more presence in that audio space is really important.
And to our
What
point with the indie thing earlier that you had mentioned too, like I feel like the indie landscape from film is another place where unique scores and unique sound design bloom. Like a lot of indie
Mhm.
films are put on the radar for having like really unique, really crazy
Right.
scores. Yeah, I mean, go all the way back to like Aronofsky, right? Like Requiem for a Dream, Pi, like those
Yeah.
films, even though Pi was like needle drops and stuff like that, it really pushed kind of a unique envelope, and it put the game on the, or put the movie on the map for being unique because of that. And to a certain degree, I think that the pinball landscape's like that as well. Indie games, indie pins. Can we use that term? Can we say indie pins? Let's
Indie
do it.
pins, homebrews. I mean,
Indie
well, yeah, we can
pins.
call them indie pins. Why not?
Right. So these
Um,
indie pin games can be used for that, I think.
right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'm thinking back to what you said earlier with all the rooms having their own personality in Winchester. What was your favorite room to work on?
Currently, well, Witch's Cap is really neat, even though it's not in the game currently. But I would say that I'm looking over at my Twilight Zone thinking that it's a Winchester, and it's not. Probably the basement. Basement had one of the more interesting challenges. So, like, Carl, the way the basement works is that you initially have to do a training light hit where you hold the center button and it swells up the lights on the side of the game and kind of sends off a flash bulb. And the flash bulb gets rid of the ghost that's coming at you on the Pepper's Ghost. So if you look at the little Pepper's Ghost screen, you can see this ghost getting closer to you. And then when it gets really close, there's a large audio cue that's like a scream. You know that something's going on. There's a call out that tells you to hit the button. You hold the button down, it flashes the ghost. And there's like a training moment that happens when it starts. But then when you're in the actual mode, all the lights go out and there's this heartbeat. And so the original music cue was the basement kind of like ambience drone, because it's supposed to be this dark, spooky area. And the heartbeat was like the percussion in the song. And it didn't work because we wanted the lights to be synced with it. So we had to come up with a way to have the heartbeat section of it synced with the music, but be on its own layer so that it could control the lights. So we moved this, we removed it from the song, we put it into the actual like game logic so that it would trigger on the lights. And so when the heartbeat pulses, all of the lights, all the potential shots flash red, but one of them lingers longer, and that's the shot that you're actually supposed to hit. So it just has all this different technical stuff. So it's interesting music in the background. It's got this percussive heartbeat thing that's integrated in with the actual lights. You've got this button press. All of the audio, music, and the callouts like help give you a like direction on what you should be doing. And that was something else that I felt was really important. They trusted me to do the direction for the callouts, and I want the game to be, you understand what you're doing from just hearing what's going on, right? So like when you hit the key drop targets, you know that that's a key sound. And then when you hear the completion sound, you know that you've acquired a key. You shouldn't have to look up at the screen and see your key number go up, or a call out say like, you have another key. That stuff there should support it. But I want the audio landscape to help navigate you through the game so that it's less confusing and more engaging. So.
That's a great point. I mean, one thing that I always talk to about my pinball with my wife is she's like, I hate looking up at the screen. I can't play and look at the screen. It's just too much going on. So having that audio cue where you don't need to look up to understand what's going on is great, and it just ties into immersion, right? Like it's just an extra point that helps new players get deeper into the game without having to look up and drain, right? It's
Sure.
so frustrating.
And
when you
Winchester has
have to look up.
3 of those. There's like 3 eye lines for this now. You have your regular screen up on the top where you can see score and everything. You have your Pepper's Ghost where you're looking at the back of the playfield when you're trying to hit shots that is giving you additional information. And then all the way down at the flippers, you have the apron now, which has, it does countdowns on there when it gets to like 9 through 0. So, we tried to put in different layers of where your eyes are going to be and to kind of feed you information just in the background. You're not like, you don't have to actively like pay attention to it, but it's just there while you're playing.
Yeah, I think that's great. More immersion is better. It makes the game more memorable and more fun to play. What are your like Barrels has this interesting way of getting different IPs, and it seems to be a little more unique than some other companies. So give me an idea of like what's a dream pin for you? If like give me 3 dream pins that you would love to work on.
Well, I mean, many of them have been like rumored that Barrels has these IPs, but that like for sure Blade Runner is up there. Fifth Element's been talked about. Like these are games that I would absolutely love. Again, for me saying that I'm not an IP person, there are IPs that I just resonate with. And Back to the Future, I would say. And I know that, Back to the Future has been heavily rumored that Dutch is coming out with that. I can't wait to see what it is. So yeah, I would say that those are the three.
I mean, those are three killer themes. I would love to see a Fifth Element. That'd be so cool.
Right?
I can't believe that
Lulu Dallas Multiball. It like writes itself.
The whole movie. There's so many major scenes from that movie that could be incorporated, like the flying taxi, and like there's man, that could be a fun one. Maybe a homebrewer needs to just make that. And
right?
We can go from there,
I think
right?
also that the Fifth Element kind of nails like the pinball vibe for me, right? Like I think that pinball machines can be serious and really engaging. I think Dune tries to do that. I think Harry Potter kind of does that to a certain degree. Like you're very like sucked into the world. Everything about it is in that style. But Fifth Element is like, it's funny, but it's also serious. It's action packed. It's also like goofy. Like it hits all these different tones perfectly. And I think that you think about like Medieval Madness or like Attack from Mars, they're in that same vein where it's just slapstick, but not. It would make a great pin. So
yeah. While you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about like all these funny scenes in that movie that are very comical, but then incredibly serious moments later. And it kind of takes you on this emotional roller coaster, which would be great for a pinball, right? Like,
sure,
just immersion would be great on that one.
Super green, hurry up. I'm a meat popsicle, like 2-ball multi-ball or something.
there's too many options, man. Like that could really go a lot of directions, and you have a lot of depth with that code.
Totally.
Let's talk about what you have left for Winchester before we wrap everything up. Like, what are you working on, and what's to come?
We've got 4 or 5 more rooms. A lot of the music for those is done. There's 2 wizard modes, I think, coming in. There's the roaming ghosts that kind of like when you fail a room, it releases a malicious spirit through the house. And then you run into that. I think something that I did want to mention, some of the Pinside comments were talking about how much they loved the trailer music. And I wrote that track. That's my music as well from music library work. But they were talking about how much they wanted it in the game, and we're working to make that happen. Because when feedback is given, if it's presented in a constructive way, like who doesn't want to hear it? It's just we're trying to make the best game that we can. But people have a lot of great ideas out there, and if they like intersect with doable things, like it happens. So yeah, we're trying to make that happen. So I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna say it's like pretty good. It's gonna be in. So if you have seen the trailer and you do play the game, keep your ear out. You're gonna find it, hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're still working on stuff. There's more to come. I'm sure there'll be another game coming across the table pretty soon here that obviously you can't talk about for a while. But I just want to say thanks for coming on, man. Go ahead and shout out any social medias. Let people know where they can follow along with your journey and keep up with what you're doing.
Sure. I'm on Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that. I hate doing plugs. If you dig my content, find me, and I would love for you to check it out. I try to take a lot of photos and do cool stuff online. My computer's been rebuilt, so I'm trying to stream more now. I got some more work to do on Dune. We've got one more wizard mode coming in, and obviously a lot on Winchester. You know what I'm going to say? Here's what I'd like to plug. If you have a Winchester and you do get one, stream it, please. I want to see it. I want to hear it. It's great for me to watch other people stream it, to see kind of like what's working and what's not on like another fine-tuned comb of potential audio work. For me, it's great to hear it just on a direct out on a stream, just to make sure that everything's good. And I want people to be exposed to the game. I know a lot of people are upset that we didn't make more and they aren't going to have one, but I'm sorry, that's not something that we were under control, and it's certainly not our intention. I think that there had been a number of rumors that this was like a malicious plan to try to sell out, and it's just so funny, man. Like, we were afraid that this game wouldn't even sell 100 units or something, and so that's why a low number happened. But people really loved it and they bounced off of it, and I think that it's a lot of different factors that came together to make this game a success. I hope the future ones are also like that. But David said over and over again that Barrels is like a company that really does give a shit about the community. We do listen to feedback, and people that are on Team Barrels are pretty happy. Then they love their games, and we're going to keep trying to make the best goddamn games we can. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to throw all your links down in the description so people can check it out. I was great meeting you and David. I mean, David was incredibly genuine. He was incredibly passionate about what you guys were working on, and I mean, it really shows in the games. So
he
I'm
drove
digging
those
barrels.
games up in a big truck, like 16 hours up from Texas to get them to Expo, and then drove them 16 hours back down. So he was operating off like almost 0 hours of sleep and still was in the booth answering questions, talking to people for the entire, whatever, 3 or 4 days that we were there. So I slept on the flight over there. I didn't have to do any of that.
You flew in, you did what you had to do, and you left. Yeah, I mean, he seems incredibly genuine, and I am a fan of what Barrels is doing, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Thanks again, Jeff, for coming on. For anyone that's still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. The wave will continue to grow. We can all ride it together. Again, if you're looking for any new games, whether that be Stearns, Ice Cold Beer, indie games, email me at indiearcadewave@gmail.com. And until next time, peace.
Praise the Great Pyramid.